Hello, people of the internet. My name is JG Shadow, and right now you are looking at a very controversial and I would say very dangerous article that the EU is proposing called Article 13 and its sister article, Article 11. Now, you may be wondering that, yeah, you've heard about this, and though you were hearing that it's pretty dangerous to the state of YouTube and social media and things like it, you really have no real understanding of what it actually is supposed to be doing. How is this supposed to affect me? What is it supposed to be doing that is so damaging and so urgently destructive and dangerous to me that we need to provide a lot of attention to it? Well, in order to do that, we need to remember about the whole state of what fair use is and the matter that YouTube and the content creators that post videos every day on YouTube have been trying to use as a way to counteract the deplorable state of the content ID system that a lot of people have been abusing as of late. Now, they have been abusing that a lot within the years that content ID has been a part of YouTube, and no matter what we tried to do in order to tell people that, YouTube seems to not want to address it in a serious way, and there are some people who will blindly and I would say pretty stupidly defend the nature of these copyright holders without even going into what we as content creators are even arguing to begin with. Keep in mind, there is a difference between just using YouTube as a dumping ground for pirated content and using it as a means to be able to independently review content. There is a stark difference. There is a complete difference between the two. In order for us to review content, we have to show you what the content even is. And to do that, we have to show you a bit of the copyrighted work that is called fair use. It is put in place in order to prevent those people who don't like constructive criticism or criticism against a work from being able to censor you. That is why it's there. That is why it exists. That is the nature, the very building block as to why certain people who don't want that critique and criticism of their work to be out there to be able to abuse the copyright system in order to take down and censor critique. And if you think for 1 second that companies would not do that, you only have to go back to 2013 and 2014 of what the late Total Biscuit had to go through with fun creators and Day One Gary's incident. You will see that people will no doubt try to do whatever it takes in order to prevent negative criticism from hitting their content. But even if it is mostly positive, it only takes you one negative critique about it in order for them to get triggered. And in that sense, you would think, okay, the only people that they want to allow to review their content are those quote-unquote approved commentators who, if they were to be approved, would then say nothing but positive coverage about their products. That is why we have independent reviewers. That is why we are concerned when we don't have transparency in print gaming media. Why is it that print gaming media are exempt from the FCC rulings on that case, but us YouTubers have to disclose every single little detail when we do our deals? That seems to be unfair. It should be that way across the board, that if you are taking a personal deal or you are getting paid to promote a particular piece of content, you should tell people that it is what you are doing. That way people know to not take your opinions at complete face value in that sense. That is the basics of why we need disclosure. That is why the FTC or FCC has brought that to the table. But Article 13 probably and most likely will change that. Now, this is right now just in the EU, but this could have ramifications across the board around the world. Because in order for YouTube to provide a means in order to do what Article 13 is proposing, it would have to change the entire site. which basically means people in the US might be affected as well, and you might want to pay attention to this. Now, if you take a look at eur-lex.europea.eu on their site, you would see that Article 13 has a bunch of mumbo-jumbo legal language that some people might not completely understand. However, it is pretty obvious when you take a look at another article that Susan N., otherwise known as Jagtress, on the website childgirl.com has posted. You'll see quite clearly what it is supposed to be doing. If you remember, I was talking about fair use. Article 13 plans to change all that. What it is essentially going to do is to allow companies to prevent you from being able to upload any content that has any sort of copyrighted material in it. If the content ID on YouTube says that you have copyrighted content in any part of your video, it can prevent you from uploading that content at all. This means that if you have a movie clip in your video, or if you're using a piece of music in any sort of way, or even if you're using a screenshot, a still picture of anything that somebody has licensed and you, quote unquote, don't have a license, unquote, YouTube can essentially say you don't have the right to upload your content, regardless of what it is. No matter if it's a review, no matter if it is a parody of a work, no matter what it is, YouTube can and more or less will be forced to take action. And if you have any sort of recourse, it does not explain that at all. Right now, if this is put in place, you as a user on YouTube might not have a defense against it. There might be no recourse, there might be no appeal, there might be nothing there at all. Now, there could be some confusion as to whether or not it would only be blocked in the European markets, but keep in mind we're talking about being able to upload. And the reason why that is a concern is because Article 13, what it essentially does is to state that large websites like YouTube and Imgur, Facebook are going to be liable if somebody posts a piece of copyrighted material. This is why people like YouTube will probably put those things into position. And the reason why this might actually be put in place, why this could actually become a reality if this is put into place, is because of its sister, Article 11. Now, Article 11 is one that nobody is really talking about because Article 13 is taking all the news. Some people have talked about it, but not enough have. Unfortunately, it is Article 11 that supplements Article 13 as to what exactly the definitions are going to be. Because, according to Article 11, it says that, quote, member states shall provide for the exclusive right to authorize or prohibit direct or indirect, temporarily or permanent reproduction by any means and in any form, in whole or in part, A, for authors of their works, B, for performers or fixations of their performances, C, for phonogram producers of their phonograms, D, for the producers of the first fixations of films in respect of the original and copies of their films, and E, for broadcasting organizations or fixations of their broadcasts, whether those broadcasts are transmitted by wire or over the air, including by cable or satellite. Now, note the emphasis that I put in there, and the emphasis that Jagtress had put in her own article. The exclusive right to authorize or prohibit direct or indirect, which basically means it is up to the copyright holders and them alone to determine whether or not something is essentially violating their copyrights. Now, keep in mind what I had said earlier about what the late Total Biscuit had went through as it pertains to his videos about the One Scaries incident and Fun Creators and Guides of the Wolf. But keep also in mind what the nostalgia critic of course, Channel Awesome had been going through with his videos of Where's the Fair Use and all of his battles with making sure that the content owners and such are kept at bay because his videos and Total Biscuit's videos were of reviews. Reviews of content, which basically means they're telling you what they think about the content and whether or not they could recommend that you buy that content or pass it up. That is a big danger. It prevents anybody from being able to use the fair use doctrine as a defense, and it is a pretty viable defense against anyone who would do what Wild Game Studios or Fun Creators were trying to do to Total Biscuit, or what some people try to do to other YouTube content creators, which may not have any defense against this sort of attack. And what could the ramifications be? That they get a copyright strike, which if, again, you get 3 of those, your channel is suspended for 7 days unless you're able to do something about it, and permanently if you get 4 or you let the 7 days lapse without anything being done about it. Now, this is extremely damaging, and of course the CEO of YouTube, Susan Wojcicki, I hope I'm not butchering that name, had gone on to call this a threat, saying that it poses a threat to creators' livelihoods and all of our abilities to upload videos to share our voices with the world. But the opposition to this thing goes much further, because recently the EFF, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, which has been one of the only people who have actively gone to try to do something in the United States about this, has actively brought to the attention a open letter that was co-signed by a degree of large European film and sports leagues that are saying that this is a danger as well. And though I'm not going to go into the full transcript of that letter because it's quite lengthy, I'm going to post a link in the description below this video so you can read that for yourself. But keep in mind the amount of people and the types of people who have signed this. They include the Premier League, which is a soccer organization, the International Video Federation, and the MPA, the Motion Picture Association, just to name a few. If those people who have a similar logo to the MPAA, who have been pretty draconian in their own right to copyright, if they're signing this, if they're saying that this might be a danger, we might want to pay very close attention to this. And it goes much further than this, because we have been telling people time and time again that video games and reactions are a form of critique. Let's Plays are a form of critique. It is a new form of critique that should be covered under fair use. We are reviewing content. We are reviewing a piece of work. And video games especially have a degree of gray area in there because there is a bit called transformative use, in the sense that no 2 people will play a video game the exact same way. Somebody might play things a lot different than another person in the exact same game. They might have different strategies. They might have different ideas of how to play the game. They might play it going different places, different ways. It is essentially a stage, and the end user is part of the process of creating in their own right. It is not like a movie or a book where everything is the exact same thing no matter where you go, no matter how you read it. A video game is very much different and is an interactive medium. And in that sense, we have struggled to try to get people to understand what it is that we are trying to tell them about this issue and issues like them. It is frustrating to see that whenever we try to bring this subject up, some people have said, well, that goes the way that it should because you are using copyrighted material that you do not own or do not have a right to use. Not understanding or caring to understand that fair use does exist, and we are essentially reviewing content. We have the right to do that. That is why fair use exists. And if this thing passes, regardless of what country it ends up passing in, the ramifications might and probably will be felt worldwide. In order to compensate for this, many sites will have to do things worldwide, which means the US would have to follow suit. People in the United States like myself who do rely on fair use, and it is an essential thing to protect freedom of speech and freedom of the press, would no longer be able to defend themselves using that whole defense, which is a valid one, as I said. And do you think for 1 second that companies are going to be kind about this? Absolutely not. This is their goal. They cannot get past the fair use doctrine in the US, but they want to try. That is the one thing that prevents them from having complete control over who gets the right to review their content. They can't seem to find a way to stop the rise of independent reviewers on YouTube and on Twitch. So what do? They're going to try this method. Make no mistake about it, this is a concerted attack. They want to do this. That is their goal. This is not a consequence, it is the consequence. And it is just not a goal, it is the goal. To try to circumvent the fair use doctrine in such a way that it does not put fair use into the equation. It is stopping you from using the resources to use fair use by not letting you have a chance to bring it into discussion in the first place. That is their goal. That is the whole nature of why this even exists. And for the EU to even acknowledge it as something that we need or that someone would actually want, and to not even go about and try to locate those people who might be against this, which they would be many if people knew what this actually was, is abhorrent to say the very least. Make no mistake about it, this is dangerous for all the reasons I specified and then some. There are just too many things that can go wrong if this thing sees the light of day. And unfortunately, it does have a chance to see the light of day, because for all the people who are telling us or telling you that this is an extremely dangerous piece of legislation and needs to be taken care of and needs to be paid attention to right now, and for all those people who would be saying, yes, this actually is something we need to take great attention to, there are so many people on the other side that are trying to say that they have every right to restrict us from using their content because of royalties or what have you. Keep in mind that on a music album, the musicians don't get to see that much of a fraction of the royalties from those albums. Most of their monies come from live performances. So in sense, this is not affecting them nearly at all, and in fact, it is only ensuring that the major companies get what they want, which is more control, not the profits. That's the one thing that they keep trying to say, and it has nothing to do with compensation. It has to do with control, with the ability to make sure that the people who are independently reviewing content don't get that opportunity. This is a form of censorship, not a form of the copyright holders being able to get fair compensation. No one is saying that they should not. Please keep that in mind, because it gets twisted every which way every single time someone tries to apologize for these types of things that keep coming up. These companies are lying straight faced to you, looking you dead in the eye and lying right to your face and not regretting it in the slightest. They want you to think that way. Don't let them get away with it. That is their goal, is to get you onto their side, using the sympathies that you might have for content creators that don't really get that much compensation, in order to get you to think that's what they're there for. But that is a fallacy. That is a lie. It is actually the ability to control what message about a product you get. This has been the goal from day one. If a product is good enough, we on YouTube tell you you have to go buy it. It is worthy of a buy. We're part of the reasons that some people go out and buy these products. We're telling you that you should watch these shows. You should buy these games. You should play these games. You should listen to this music. And not all of us are going to agree. That's the point. That is why we have opinions. That is why we have a diverse set of opinions. So you can get different viewpoints. So you can get those different perspectives of a product or of whatever it is. And if we get censored in this sort of way, in a way that we don't get the chance to use fair use as a defense, then what is left? If the only type of reviews are positive or are not even the least bit critical of anything, then that's going to prevent you from making an informed purchase or an informed decision to use critical thinking in any sort of debate. That is why we exist. And if this thing goes into effect, if this thing passes, that is a huge danger to our existence. So we must take a stand. Now, there is a few things that Jagtress did post on her article that you can go to. I will post those in the link in the description below the video, as well as her article, so you get the firm description of what we are talking about here. Because as much as I think I did a good job as to describe what is going on, I don't think I could do as much of a job as she did in describing this. If you're in the EU, go to whoever is the people in charge in your state or whatever it is, and tell them that you are in opposition of this dangerous article, of this dangerous piece of legislation. But if you are in the US, where I'm at, you could do your own good here. Because we've had to fight off things like SOPA. We've had to fight off things like the Stop Online Piracy Act, and we had done just that. But keep in mind, that is not going to be the only time to even try this. Keep that in mind, is that they have tried this time and time again, and we had to fight it off all the time. This is just yet another way that they have tried to keep the message, the narrative, in their full control. In a digital age, they feel like they are losing the control, so that's what they're trying to do, and they don't know how to stop it. They shouldn't have the means to stop it. They should instead embrace it, but that is just exactly why they're doing it. It's because they can't control what you get to hear about the product. That is why they are doing it. And if people get a head start in the US and contact their senators and representatives and saying, hey, you know this thing in the EU, you better not try to do it here. We are on to you. If they say to them that we would not want that kind of legislation in our country, or if you have a way in order to influence them to not do that in order to make sure that it doesn't affect us here, then you have the power in order to do that, to contact your local senator, contact your local representative, contact whoever it could be in order to make sure that stuff like this does not see the light of day anywhere in the world, because we need to be protected as independent reviewers of content. I thank you for your time. My name is JD Shadow, and that just happened.